you get there and some of the cops stay in their vehicles. They sit in their cars, and then I speak to them. And you know what the sad thing is? Some of them do actually care, but they are so tired and exhausted from not having resources, not having support, having to arrest the same guy over and over again, that uniform members just end up saying that, you know, what's the point?
Created this reputation about our country that it's where crime is widespread. It's where, you know, you could lose your life, because as Ian is saying, the statistics are shocking. The global comparisons, they are shocking, right? Even in the emerging markets, other emerging markets don't have these high levels of crime that South Africa has. It's just shocking.
Here we are again. Everybody, welcome. This is Phumlani M at WorldView, the #1 media company. This is where we explore everyone's perspectives on things that can broaden our own worldview. Today we have two guests. One of them is here already, Phumlani Majozi. Phumlani is very much known in the business macroeconomic analysis world. He writes, he's quite prolific. Number of media platforms in South Africa know him. He has very strong political views, economic views about where and how the South African economy should be managed, and he's very much followed on Twitter and other platforms. So I'm very happy to have you here, Phumlani. Welcome to WorldView.
Great to be here. Thanks, Soli. I look forward to the conversation.
And I can see that Ian is joining us. Ian is...
hey, gentlemen.
Hello, Ian.
Just on time.
Hello.
I'm so sorry I'm a little bit late, eh? I'm struggling to catch up. It's been very hectic, so I'm sorry I'm slightly late.
All media cameras are looking at you now in South Africa. You're like the man of the day, of the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, eh? It's a bit weird.
It's a good thing, though.
Thanks.
Yeah, and anyway, you don't even need to be introduced anymore, Ian, because you're the man right at the center of media cameras and flashlights in South Africa.
The spotlight.
But for the sake of this, of course, Ian is a man who recently confronted the minister of Minister of Police in South Africa. I mean, who shouldn't be there, but that's what we'll see throughout the discussion. He confronted him because he got tired of this man. And Ian is an activist, social action.
Action Society, yes.
Action Society movement in South Africa is responsible for community safety, the director for community safety. So he was invited alongside members of the community of Gugulethu and some of the townships in Cape Town to an address, or so what was supposed to be an engagement with the Minister of Police that turned out to be something else, a confrontation, which was really unfortunate. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we have on WorldView an analyst and an activist, or somebody who walks through the sewage in the townships to get things done. So Ian, you've been through a number of interviews over the past 2 weeks. I don't want for this to be a repetition of all of those discussions, or I'm going to get bored. But I'm really, really happy that you stood up. I was so proud of you. I almost wanted to say, no, I did say, I love this man. And I love you for two reasons. Ian, because you're a white man. I don't love you because you're white, but I love you because you stood up. Because too many, and I was saying to Phumlani and to Donald earlier, that white people have been covered by the race card into speaking against speaking up. So when the race card, the minute you get accused of being racist, of saying something or doing something because you white, many people have decided not to say it, but you stood your ground. That you said, no, this is nonsense, and every word that you uttered in there was really correct. How do you feel 1 week later? I mean, is there something that you feel you shouldn't have said, or that you should have said more or more clearly? Do you look back at some of these things and say, maybe I should have said this thing in this particular way, or not at all?
No, not at all. So sorry. First, thank you very much for your kind words. It really wasn't a planned effort. The whole thing. Let me maybe give context first. So I wasn't planning on going originally. I received the message on Monday night, and Then on the Tuesday morning, I thought to myself, but wait a minute, we've got 1 or 2 cases in Gugulethu. We don't really work in Gugulethu that much. We've actually got more cases in Mitchells Plain and Khayelitsha. So as I said to everyone, all cards on the table. I'm not here to pretend that we're doing something that we're not. But I just wanted to go listen. But what really got to me was the fact that the minister immediately made it a political discussion, and that while the area really is taking, literally and figuratively speaking, taking shots, they are really suffering and face severe violence across the entire area of the broader Cape Flats, and he wants to talk politics. And a lot of people say, but what was written in the notebook? And the answer is nothing. All I wrote there was 642 people per police member. And the only reason I held the book was because I left my pen in the car. So long story short, I just felt strongly about it. And when I started speaking, I was the 13th speaker. So I did wait my turn. This nonsense that his spokesperson is saying that I interrupted him or something is nonsense. I waited my turn to get the microphone. I then spoke, and there were still 7 people that spoke after me before he went off on his rant. So it wasn't something that that all happened on top of each other as it is portrayed here and there. Nevertheless, I wouldn't say anything differently. In fact, I might actually want to add a few points. If I had more time to add a few stats, I would do that too. And I would do it again if I could. Again, today I don't understand why they don't listen to what the people on the ground are telling them. Again, today in Soweto, they have a high-level closed-door meeting between the National Commissioner and the Minister first. I mean, public transparency 101. Why don't you publish that meeting? Invite the media to the meeting. Discuss it openly. I'm not saying reveal the suspects to the entire country. I know that the investigation can be sensitive, but draw the country into the fight against crime. Start being transparent. Start being open. In Georgia, just south of Russia, they have a very, very interesting story that years ago the Georgian ambassador told me. He told me the following. They had a massive problem with corruption. And you know what? When they started restructuring, they broke down the entire police service. Right. And they literally built the new police headquarters with glass. So the entire thing, and it symbolizes transparency. And that's one step in the right direction. But again, Cele would rather go and walk around and visit funerals and murder scenes instead of trying to do something proactive. So no, to answer you shortly, I wouldn't change a thing. I stand by what I said. And then lastly, about the race thing, I think that's where where it exploded. I wouldn't have interrupted him, but as soon as he insinuated that of me, I'm not going to stand for that. I wouldn't be in Gugulethu if I only cared for a certain demographic of the country. My fight is 67 people on average get murdered per day. That's the problem at hand. If someone's dead and I get to a murder scene, I don't ask what race they are before I care about the victim lying on the street. About a month ago, I was in a murder scene in Khayelitsha where a guy was shot in the head 4 times. And you get there, and some of the cops stay in their vehicles. They sit in their cars, and then I speak to them. And you know what the sad thing is? Some of them do actually care, but they are so tired and exhausted from not having resources, not having support, having to arrest the same guy over and over again, that uniform members just end up saying that, what's the point? Let's just get state pathology to come and remove the body. So yeah, I stand by it, and I think we should stay focused on the facts and not allow someone like Bheki Cele to make it a race issue.
Yeah, I want to talk about the police, the conduct of the police. I'll soon a little bit later, but I want to bring in Phumlani here. Phumlani is an analyst. He looks at numbers. He looks at. I'm very happy that in many of your engagements here, you've spoken about average number of people getting killed every day per annum. I think you mentioned something like we're heading towards 23,000, 24,000 per annum casualties in South Africa. That's huge. That's massive. What does it do for the economy? Especially for people looking at investing in South Africa, Phumlani?
Well, this crime thing, it seems to me, is very much something that is can be seen widespread in largely poor communities, right? In townships, in squatter camps areas. Even though there is crime, of course, in a city like Johannesburg, where I live, where I've had a gun pointed my way 2 times. It's people who come from very poor places to come and do this thing, right? So now the impact on this damages the reputation of the country. It harms, especially when you look at tourism. Tourism is a very fundamental industry in South Africa. And the moment we've created this reputation about our country that it's where crime is widespread, it's where, you could lose your life, because as Ian is saying, the statistics are shocking. The global comparisons, they are shocking, right? Even in the emerging markets, other emerging markets don't have these high levels of crime that South Africa has. It's just shocking. So the tourism here is an industry that gets really affected, and it contributes quite a good amount into our gross domestic product. It's one of the the industries that are contributing quite well in the economy, and we have the potential in that front. But crime remains an issue that taints that industry, and also puts limitations as to its growth and the potential that we have. At one point I was flying from the Middle East, and I was sitting to this a lady next to me. The lady said, how is South Africa and all that, and she says to me, where I come from, you can leave, you can sleep overnight with the doors of your car left unlocked. In South Africa, you can never do that. Usually, you've been telling me stories where you are based, that you have peace there from a crime perspective. You don't need to worry that there will be some guys breaking into your house with lethal weapons that could really kill you, because these people are dangerous and they do kill. And there are many scenes that Ian has been describing. There are many in South Africa of these scenes that are just totally shocking. So the tourism industry is the one that gets affected solely. And I think if we can address the issues of crime on the ground, the crime that has been even noticed by the world, because in 2013, the Donald Trump, who was then the private citizen in the US, when Mandela died, he tweeted that he does like South Africa, but his concern is the exploding crime. And he had a point that this is an issue that South Africa has to confront and has to resolve. When you look at industries like financial services and so on, you must remember that these big industries, they tend to be able to, at least for now, afford to put some security measures to protect against crime in their business operations.
But there are many South Africans who have left, professionals, people with qualifications, or people who used to run small businesses, who have decided they can't take it anymore for the safety of their family. I think once you've seen, somebody who's been confronted, and this is not just black people, it's all South Africans who are affected by crime.
A friend of mine is based in Europe now, and is black, by the way. He is based in Europe now, and when I speak to him, he says that one of my great concerns there is crime, which in where I am based, we don't have that. And even a few people I've spoken to who have migrated, they do highlight that crime is the major issue. That I
was in South Africa in April. I don't live in South Africa anymore since last year. It's a discussion for another day. My home is in Cape Town, Randburg. It's not in Guguletu. And I rode out of my house, my yard, to go on a bike, I'm a cyclist. Within 1,000 meters from my home, I was suddenly surrounded by guys with knives and guns. I was damn scared. They took my bike. I let them take I had my rucksack in which I had my passport, and I stupidly had my passport and my wallet, of course, and stuff in there. Fortunately, they didn't go for it. I made sure for them to have the bike. It was a fairly new bike. They went away with it. That scares me. I mean, now that I've seen that, it's one thing to hear about these things, but when I think about living in South Africa,
to experience it's just, I had to go for counseling at one point after an incident that happened. I had to go for counseling because a few days after, they murdered a guy just near, in this kind of very near me in the area. They murdered him to death, right?
Yeah.
These are a few days when they had pointed guns my way. So it's a painful thing to experience.
Yeah. Ian, you know, when I listened to you first when you spoke to the minister, it's almost like you tried hard to be respectful. You know, you kept saying "sir," and which is supposed maybe the right thing to say, but you also not. I don't think that you're harsh enough on the police. If the police were not too fearful of their boss, they should have stood up really and said, "No, but Minister, we're not here. We're here to defend people like this." And they shouldn't have agreed to jump on you and all those guys, the guys who came into the room as if the minister was under threat. Are you not disappointed in the conduct of those policemen? They're both the ones who took you out and the ones who came rushing in with the R5s. And you just a minute, Ian, and before you go, but also with the community, members of the community, surely when you got thrown out of the room, those people should have stood up and said, well, if he goes, we also go. I mean, surely it was very clear what was going on in there. Are you not disappointed?
Yeah, so I think it's mixed feelings. Obviously, I'm disappointed with the cops that pulled me out. The colonel that grabbed me by the arm is actually a colonel from Limpopo, which is very funny because he's supposedly acting on behalf of the Minister of Police, but he doesn't actually really spend time on the ground in the very area where he's now supposedly policing. And I think what shocks me about it is that it took that amount of resources to remove me. I posed no threat to anyone. I was sitting in the back of the hall, so I was far from the minister as well. I wasn't armed or anything of that kind. So it was quite a spectacle to be removed that way, and then have the tactical response team members come running in with their R5s. It's actually quite funny to watch because, I think to myself, imagine if they had spent that exact time to combat some crime on the streets outside, because it's funny, about 2 kilometers from where the meeting was held, 2 female victims were hijacked, literally within the space that Minister Cele was speaking. Before I speak about the police again, just about the minister, with regards to calling him sir, I think it's very important that we keep the high ground, firstly, but at the same time that we don't shy away from robust debate. I think, Phumlani, I can say I follow you very closely on Twitter and so on, and I always enjoy your commentary and everything. And I'm just going to use an example. Say, for example, Phumlani doesn't agree with something that I say, or I don't agree with something that he says. It doesn't mean we can't respect each other. We need to get away from this cancel culture principle that if you don't agree with someone on everything, then they are enemy number one. And I didn't attack Minister Cele as a person. I'm talking about his heart, his character. Right. I took him on as the Minister of Police and the responsibility that he carries as the Minister of Police. And that's how I see it. I think when he insinuated certain things about me, he took on my character, and I won't stand for that. So that's very important. And I believe that when we take on these types of discussions, it must be with integrity. And with that, I don't say I get it perfectly right. I mean, I get peed off sometimes, and say, for example, on Twitter, as an example, I've said things sometimes just out of pure rage that I think to myself, this is outrageous, this guy's a criminal, or this party's a criminal, and I know that. So I'm no angel, not that at all, but I think as far as we possibly can, we need to try and approach it with respect. And we need to know that we won't all agree politically on everything, but at least there are certain, core issues that we can agree on, and one of them is crime. I've been called many funny things this last week. I must say 99.9% of people are very positive, but here and there you do really hear very interesting things about yourself that I didn't even know, and I think we should just move past that. I'm not going to get involved in political debates. I see, and I don't want to give them airtime, so I'm just going to say certain small parties or certain members of parliament are challenging me on Twitter and asking me questions about who I associate with and who I meet with and so on and so forth. But, you know, tomorrow I'll be meeting with the Gugulethu Development Forum. And after that, I'll be meeting with not only police members, but after that with provincial government officials. So again, I couldn't care less about your race or political affiliation if your focus is really on combating crime and doing so honestly.
Phumlani, I mean, I don't see the things that Ian is calling for changing while the ANC is in power. I don't know what you think. Look, the ANC has been frustrating policing in the Western Cape for forever, and maybe because they're not in control of the Western Cape. And I'm saying the ANC because the national government, of which Cele is a member, is ANC government, and they don't want to see the Western Cape thriving. At least that's the impression that's being created out there. What do you think should happen? I mean, devolving of the responsibility for policing in South Africa should really happen. I mean, and can we get this done while the ANC is in power?
Well, firstly, let me give a big shout to people like Ian and his organization and other organizations that are not affiliated to government, that are independent, that are doing something on the ground to make South Africa a better country. Right. So I give these people a big shout and I hope they grow and grow. Now there's the state, which is what you're asking me about. Can the state get this under the ANC? The big answer to that is no. They have totally failed the people of South Africa. They failed on the economy. They failed on immigration. The levels of illegal immigration in South Africa, they are just shocking. Right. This also involves the securing of our borders. Over the past almost 30 years of our democracy, the ANC has failed dismally. The shocking unemployment rates that we see in the country, again, that's failure of the ANC. The dismal economic growth rates that we've seen since basically over the past decade, we haven't even grown by 2%, right? Just over the past decade. It's 10 years now. We can't even reach 10%. We can't even reach 2% of annual economic growth. So the ANC has failed dismally. We see the levels of corruption in the country. Now, I have argued over the past or in recent years that the only effective way to change the state of the country is to have different people in charge of the national government. We need a change in the governance of South Africa. And by change, I mean we need to bring in new people who will at least, we'll expect them to do something different. Under this current government of the ANC, I don't think these things will change. If you challenge them as Ian has done by challenging one of their ministers, you will see a backlash from them. They will play the race card. Or you think I'm garden boy. You think I'm this, you know. So we are not going to see change solely. And I've said this many, many times that in a democracy, the big player is the voter. And we need to bring this change as soon as possible. If we don't, in 2024, we don't make the big changes, then we have ourselves to blame. And I like, you know, Sole, I've always told you that I've always admired your mindset, your views about Africa. And that is, we as people, we need to, you know, to take charge. These people they didn't get themselves into power. We voted for them. So it's our responsibility. In a democracy, the voter can make a huge difference. And it is us as citizens who have to recognize that all these situations that we face, from crime to the dismal economy, we cannot really resolve them under this current, under the government headed by the ANC. We need to bring in new people who will aim to do things better than the ANC, because they will be forced to do things better than the ANC, and would have signaled that if they don't do the right things that will improve the state of the country, we are going to put them out. And so remember, I think it's all about the citizens, and they must bring the change. And
I want to interrupt you there, and I want to say it on a lighter note. When you said garden boy, now I actually like mowing my own lawn. So I think Minister Cele, he was the one that made a derogatory point to people that like working in their gardens, because I mow my own lawn, and I actually quite enjoy listening to a good old podcast or some music while I do it. And Phumlani, I love what you're saying. I think it's also important that the civil rights space that we see in South Africa now really takes up the opportunity to fulfill let's call it, you always have a better way with words than I do, but let's say fulfill the mandate that they have been given on a silver platter by the ANC. Not doing their jobs, because the ANC are actually offering us an opportunity to do something. They are giving us opportunities to rise up and be constructive and do different things. And I agree with you completely. Nothing can change if senior political leadership doesn't change. There are certain realities on ground level that we can influence. Let's say, for example, with crime, neighborhood watches, etc., which I'm a massive supporter of. I really believe in strong community safety structures. But it's absolutely crucial that whilst we exhaust those remedies, that what communities can do themselves, we also need to influence political leadership. And I think the two run next to each other. It's kind of a parallel approach that we need to change. And if just in terms of policing, if you forget about the community for a little bit, just in terms of policing, nothing can change if Cele isn't removed, and if we don't have a competent SAP's internal leadership, but also SAP's political leadership.
Right. Do you get support from JP Smith and the people in the Western Cape, both at provincial and city level?
Yeah, so very interesting. Let me sort of spill the bean. So the one person that took me on Twitter this morning is actually Brett Heron from the Good Party. And not going to have a political discussion. I'm also not going to respond because I think it's ridiculous comments. He asked me whether I've met with Helen Zille. Yes, I have met with Helen Zille, and I've also obviously met with Bheki Cele. I've met with the National Commissioner of Police, and I've also met with members of the EFF before. I've met with SASCO, and I've met with the Young Communist League before. So yes, I've met with JP Smith as well. Yes, I have seen him, and I've met with Robbie Roberts, the Director of Safety and Security in the City of Cape Town. And tomorrow I'm meeting with the Gugulethu Development Forum. So I'm not quite sure what they're trying to push. I think they might be saying that I'm, that I'm aligning myself with certain parties, and be that as it may. The point is, yes, I have met with them, and I must say, completely from an objective approach. Apart from that, I've had positive discussions with them. I do find it quite exciting to see some of the plans they have to do better law enforcement models in especially poorer communities. So I really hope it works, because I know resource allocation is a problem. And I mean, you've heard that the whole devolution discussion going on, that we should consider devolution, and so on and so forth. And I honestly hope that we do have an opportunity to see better resource management within the province, if money doesn't all get sent to national government, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the problem. You've got a province paying a lot of tax that's going to national government, and that money ends up being used in the Free State and in Limpopo, but the very people that need it in a province like the Western Cape aren't receiving the resources that they need.
You're almost speaking as someone who supports Kexit.
Yes. I actually do support some ideas of it. I'm unsure. It's not my forte, but I like the sound of parts of it. I'm not sure if it is necessarily a country on its own yet, but I do believe power needs to be devolved. I think it's so important that we don't just always centralize power. It's such a very much a socialist type of thing to do, especially once you start losing control, you suddenly start centralizing everything. It's kind of that, it's almost like what Bheki Cele said on Tuesday. He wrongly quoted the Constitution, saying that he is the only constitutionally mandated body that can safeguard people. How atrocious is that? Because that means you and I can't even keep ourselves safe if we're going to take that literally.
Not only I see that Phumlani has dropped off. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe he'll come back anyway. But not only did Bheki Cele make that claim, he also said he is the public representative, which is not true. These people who are in parliament are not public representatives, they are party representatives. Now, we keep talking in South Africa, Ian, about if we have a new, I remember Phumlani was saying, if we have new people, we have new, better people. But people go rogue on us. State capture happened because we had other people that replaced other people. Ramaphosa is president now. Not much has changed really. The criminals are still in the National Assembly. So what I believe, and I want your view on this, what I believe is not just South Africa doesn't just need a new set of people. What we need are systemic changes. We need to ask ourselves, over the past 30 years, since the end of apartheid, what is wrong with the system that we put in place? Policing, or the economic system, the political, the electoral system, that we should do differently? What kind of new checks and balances do we need? So there are systemic changes that have to happen. We've placed too much power into the hands of the president. Now the president, we have two strong presidents in South Africa. The president is too strong. They can do anything. They can make any decision. In places like America, in France, they have strong presidents too. Yeah. We do. I live in Switzerland, by the way. Here you are a president for 12 months and you don't have many powers. It's just symbolic. After 12 months, somebody else becomes president. You just symbolically represent the country when you go to the UN, and you almost like you're the chairman of a committee.
Yes.
But in South Africa, people want to be boss. Do you think, now if you were, let me ask you this, so if you were to be made National Police Commissioner in South Africa, or National Minister of Police, or an advisor, whatever role, how do you see a better, a more efficient policing system function in South Africa?
Yeah, so there are a few steps that I would consider taking. Firstly, and people might laugh, but I would stop all VIP protection for the majority of politicians. I understand some high risk areas, and I understand leadership roles, etc. But that would be a thing of the past. And the fact that specialized units like TRT get used to protect a minister, days are over. That's wrong. So I think that's point number one, and that would be a small administrative task. But apart from that, so I think what I would do in terms of South African police service is I would root out criminality inside the police service first. So I would start with a process to not only investigate, but also even polygraph. Now, people have challenged me on this, saying, yeah, but it won't hold up in a court of law. Well, that's fine. But I think we need to think out of the box with it. We need to start a process of really rooting out anyone that's had criminal or corrupt activities linked to them in the past. And we need to start with everyone that's ranked brigadier and above, because you can't try and control the snake if the snake's head is rotten. So we need to chop it off and start afresh. That's the first thing. And then I would start looking at a decent skill audit in the South African police service, make sure that appointments have been made according to merit. And I would slowly then start moving down, making sure that we've got specialized units again. Start with maybe one or two really specialized units, and that would target violent crime kingpins. And if they want to fight fire with fire, so be it. Remove them from society. I think it's an absolute scandal that some of these crime kingpins can openly do what they want in South Africa with absolutely no repercussions. It must make you wonder, who are they connected to, because they just do what they want. But if I say something to the minister, I'm forcefully removed from a room, So yeah, and then obviously improve training on ground level. But those I wouldn't say those are strategic tasks. Those are tasks that are things you can sort out inside SAPS. In the broader criminal justice sense, I think there's a bigger role to play in terms of the Department of Justice and the police minister. And the reason I say that is that we need to up conviction rates. We need to go and see why there's such a bottleneck in courts, and we need to fasten that process. It cannot take 2 years for a DNA report to come out for a rape and murder case. And during that time, the suspect had another 2 years to do whatever he liked on the street. And that happened. That's the case of Chantal Mokoena, 5 years old, raped, murdered, dumped in a pit latrine. And the guy was out for another 2 years before the DNA match was done. And those little simple things could have sorted out a quick conviction, making sure that someone is behind bars and we can move forward.
Do we not have sufficient DNA processing labs in South Africa, or is it? You mentioned in one of your interviews that they don't get paid. These are private service providers usually, and the money that is supposed to be allocated to ensuring that they get paid to do their work gets diverted elsewhere. Is it a problem of resources or a problem of capacity?
No, I think it's a problem of political will, because we've got so many really strict, not strict, very skilled people in the South African police service left. We still have quite a few, and we still have a lot of very skilled people in South Africa and even abroad that I'm sure will be willing to come and help. Was the request there? But yeah, I think the political will is not there. Let's focus on the forensic thing. I mean, the PCAM system is the forensic management system, exhibit management system, and the system was switched off just over 2 years ago because of non-payment by SAPS, and that was directly linked to Cele and General Sithole, that their national commissioner. It's something that they could have prevented, and now they've tried to build their own system, but it's not nearly got all the functions that it's meant to have, and it's going very, very slow to transfer all the data back onto that system, which makes it very, very challenging. So political will first. Yes, there are challenges in terms of procurement when it comes to forensic evidence, resources that are needed. I'm not a forensic expert. I just know this because of what members have told me. But what I can say is that I think political will is rather the thing that needs to be changed. But hey, let's face it, if the police function properly, a lot of politically connected people will be caught out for all the corrupt dealings that they've been involved in.
Okay, but we have the matter of devolving power from national to provincial. How would we do that? Because that's needed. I mean, it's clear that the Western Cape has been frustrated, and particularly the Western Cape is the only place that's not governed by the ANC. It is policing, in terms of the provincial government structures. So, would you give more powers to provinces, assuming that provinces are kept in post-ANC South Africa, so that more work gets done there in terms of policing?
Yeah, I think to me, it's really keeping the financial resources inside the province. So for something like policing, making sure that resources are managed inside the province. What's happening now is that money in terms of policing goes to national government allocates budget to the police, and the police then decide how they allocate resources. And I mean, the police in the Western Cape are severely understaffed and has been for many years. So I think that's a way to solve it. I'm not a devolution expert, but from what I understand and what I've read and spoken to people about, it's very clear to me that by doing that, we can build a better synergy between SAPS and the other law enforcement agencies in the province. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that SAPS has no national role. No, not at all. But it does mean that there can be a more unified approach towards crime and assisting each other, because there's always this constant kind of divide between Western Cape law enforcement and Metro Police and by law enforcement authorities and SAPS, and it's because of politics being played. It's because of an ANC that doesn't want it to function properly in the Western Cape, because they are not in control in the province and on ground level, and it's as simple as that.
I want to talk about the community in Cape Town. You mentioned in one of your interviews that you felt, everybody was supporting you, which is true. But I'm tired of people supporting other people just by words only, or coming to pay after they. I feel when I watch the videos at the community center, when you were shafted out of the room, South Africans did what they do best. They sat down in that room. I don't care that they came to you and said, yeah, we support you, behind you. They had an opportunity there to say, if this man leaves, we all leave. Or do you think that they were right to stay behind?
No, I think you're right. I think you've got a point. I haven't even thought about it that way. Obviously, there are a lot of people that followed suit to come and watch and take photos, but it's funny how, and I say that with respect, everyone has time to pick up their phones and film it instead of trying to prevent it. What was very inspiring afterwards when I watched the videos, this little black granny sitting next to me, and I checked it afterwards. I didn't feel it because obviously you're filled with adrenaline at that stage. But I checked the clip afterwards, and she's sitting there holding on to my hand. You must watch it. That was super inspiring. And Shane, I mean, she couldn't get up quickly. It's impossible. She's really elderly and so on. And she was so nice before. We were, her and I were sitting chatting and everything, drinking water together. And the point I'm trying to make, so I think so, yes. I also know that people really have lost a lot of hope. I think people are frustrated to a point where they feel that even if they stand up and say something, they don't get listened to. And obviously, I don't agree with that. I feel it's important to speak and to especially speak your mind and share what you feel and think. But I really think people have become extremely hopeless in South Africa, and we've got a massive task to try and motivate them to get involved again.
But I mean, it's painful that you have to come out. I don't know where you live, where your home is located in Cape Town. But
I actually live in Paul, in the Winelands area.
Yeah, okay, I know where Paul is, yeah.
Yes.
So you live in Paul, you have to drive from time to time all the way to Michelle's Plain, Gugulethu, to Khayelitsha to assist there. Do you find that there is community will? And it's one thing to place responsibility on ministers. They do have a responsibility. I agree 100% with everything you said. But I think South Africans whom you're talking to about now have to stand up also. They have to say, what do we need? And when you're saying that we have to walk through a sewage to go to point A or B, what are the people in that community doing? Are they sitting there waiting for somebody to come and make sure there's no sewage? Or are they saying, look, the government is not playing the role it must. How do we organize ourselves so that we live in a cleaner environment? This is what we want to see. We want to see South Africans not just sitting waiting for Ian and others to come and help them, but standing up to say, we have self-respect and this is what we need.
Yes, I love it. I absolutely love what you're saying. So there are two sides to it. Firstly, in terms of a policing side, what is inspiring to me is the amount of women that patrol their streets. And I said this on Tuesday with the Cele incident. My last comment was, men, you need to start stepping up. And I say that for two reasons. I'll come back to the other points now, but I say that for two reasons. The one thing is men have stopped being outspoken because often the impression is created that all thing male is bad, and we see these horrible things being said about men all over the world. And I think men have been silenced in that way. And to be honest, we've got great men in South Africa. We've got a lot of very good men with impeccable integrity in South Africa, and they need to speak out. So that's the first thing. In terms of the ladies that walk the streets to patrol, it boggles my mind that they do so unarmed, often elderly, and they literally patrol the streets to make their community safer. The few patrols that I've been on in some of these areas, it always astounds me to see how even some gang members greet them with such respect. You walk through parts of, for example, the Cape Flats, and renowned gangsters would be standing on a street corner and they would literally greet them by name, and they would immediately vacate the area because of those elderly ladies walking there. Right. So I think that's an important message to send. In terms of the self-respect part, I think we've got a massive leadership problem with people that don't have the self-respect or the respect for others around them. The dignity of people has been destroyed to a point where they think certain situations are normal. The example that I used to Cele on Tuesday was from 2 weeks ago. Siphokazi Boy is a lady that was murdered close to Paul and Mokweni, and I went to visit her sister after she had returned from the Eastern Cape, and we went to where Siphokazi was murdered. And when we got out the car, there was a small boy literally defecating on the sidewalk. Right. And like 5 meters from there was a dead dog lying there, and it was so smelly. And there was other sewage running down the one side, and there was a whole lot of trash lying on the other side. And 10, 20 meters from there, other kids were busy kicking a ball, and it's so normal. And people would then come to me and say, yeah, but the kid shouldn't be pooing on the street. And sure, I guess, but what else is he meant to do? He's literally 3-4 years old. What is he meant to do? He doesn't even have running water. And that that gets to me, and I honestly can sit here today, I don't know the answer to everything regarding that. I just know that we've got a long way to go to try and improve the self-dignity that people feel. I mean, look at the police. Sorry, yeah, I go to some of these stations, the women don't even have toilet seats on the toilets. They don't have toilet paper to use. Now you want that person to uphold law and order, but you don't even treat them with basic dignity to make sure they've got a clean, functioning toilet.
But leadership has to start from within. And I mean, I hear that. I mean, a lot of what we say is, but we're not getting supported by the government, or we're not, somebody has to come and lead us. Somebody in the police station must say, guys, we need to organize ourselves here.
Absolutely.
How about we get this and this and this done? Somebody in the community should say, guys, are we happy with our children defecating in the streets and dogs lying there dead? Should we not
you're
say,
right. You're 100%
because we can't have a society where if nobody does it for us, we're not going to do it for ourselves.
Exactly. I mean, I think you're 100% right. And to add to it, when I still worked for AfriForum a few years ago, the project, and AfriForum still does that where they do cleanup projects, where the community literally, they mow the lawn in some of the parks in some towns, because government doesn't do it anymore. So the community does it themselves. They clean sidewalks, they paint roads, etc. And that's a very important example. Let's use Mbekwini as an example. Why can't someone in the community walk around with a broom, just cleaning sidewalks, little things. And I think that's the other thing. Everyone always wants financial gain in return. And if we're going to have that approach, I know we need to survive and so on. But if that's your sole reason for being, then we can't win. So I think you're right. Maybe sorry, the question is that we have a let's call it a character or moral fiber issue in the country, that's what we need to try and address, to tell people that, hey, you need to start doing things yourself.
Absolutely. It started with the people littering. One of my biggest pet peeves is people just throwing cans out of car windows, bottles and papers when they're walking in the pavement. You finish a packet of chips or chocolate, whatever, you just throw it there, you walk. I mean, like, how do people think? And if it doesn't start there, self-respect, it can't be imposed from above. Then you need some kind of dictator to arrest you for throwing a paper in the street. I mean, like, so we need to change something in South Africa. What do you think about PropCo?
Well, let me ask you first, what do you think about it?
I'm doing the interview, my friend.
No, it actually broke up. I didn't hear you now. That's why I asked.
PropCo. Oh, sorry, the police trade union. These guys,
yeah. Sorry, no. So PropCo, it's a serious problem that I think police has been unionized. It made a massive it really had a negative influence on the DNA backlog as well, because during the COVID period, we heard some of the unions, especially PropCo, saying, no, they can't work, they're being exposed to COVID, etc., etc. So forensic labs only had half the staff, they had different working hours, etc. And it eventually meant that the backlog just got even worse. So I think unions inside the police is a very, very dangerous thing. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there. I think there is an important role to play, especially to represent both the employer and the employee. But it must be done to a point where it is not detrimental to victims of crime and to citizens. And unfortunately, I think it's been politicized to a point where that has happened. And we even saw, I mean, people that are aligned with the right groups, when the right commissioner is appointed at the right time, that certain individuals would get promotions because of their political alignment and their union alignment. And some of these unions are known to be aligned to certain political parties. And that's a very, very dangerous space to walk into. And it's also racialized the police on the inside, people not getting promotions because of the color of their skin, or people getting promotions because of the color of their skin. And that is actually causing far more damage, because someone, and all of us, well, rather all of us, want to be recognized because of merit, because we did something good and right. But now someone is simply being promoted because of the color of their skin.
Now, let's replay what happened between you and Bheki Cele last week, and imagine you to be Themba Hlabathini, not Ian Cameron. What I mean is a black dude.
Yeah.
How do you think the whole thing could have played out?
No, I think nothing would have happened. I think, I mean, the people that spoke before me were far, far, far more outspoken than I was. Some of those ladies were really giving it to Cele. They were shouting and screaming and so on. And they certainly didn't call him minister or sir. And I don't think anything would have happened. I think the fact that I stated facts, and facts that actually come from his own department, firstly, and secondly, that that he didn't know how to answer that on that platform, was, you know, he looked for an easy way out, and then he pulled the race card, which actually exposed him, because people from all different creeds and cultures are sick and tired of it. They just want to survive, and they want justice on ground level. So I think nothing would have happened. And it's actually an atrocity, because Cele, the very people that he speaks of, especially Black people, when he speaks of human rights, etc., he doesn't take them seriously. It's atrocious that people, and this is what some Black people have actually said to me, that Ian, you know, if you were Black, you wouldn't even have listened to us. So he's actually the one that's undermining the very people that he says he is representing, and that he has lived that life. And I think the other atrocious part that I just shake my head is the fact that he lied about his father and his mother. You know, his father was a senior in Duna with SA Railways, so he wasn't, you know, anything else. And his mother tragically passed away when he was 9 months old. So he wouldn't even have known if someone called his mother something derogatory. But nevertheless, let's accept it as being a figure of speech rather than being literal. I just think that that nothing would have happened. I think he would have just continued. He would have put his hat back on and moved on to the next funeral or meeting.
I think these Black politicians do these things to Black people because Black people let them do these things to them, or maybe South Africans in general. We let the ANC government get away with so much. We sit down, we complain on social media, and from time to time, and Ian Cameron stands up to say, wait a minute, that is not true. These are the facts. We suddenly celebrate you. Then we'll stop celebrating you after a week and move on to other things, and so forth and so on. And that is the tragedy of South Africa, isn't it? We need to get together as South Africans and say, first of all, we need to determine what kind of country we want for ourselves.
Yep.
We need to determine that.
Yeah. I want to share something with you. I just want to open here so I can actually read it word by word. A few months ago, there was a guy called Terence Tegg that was murdered during the Clover protest by protesters. Yeah, so Terence was stoned to death. And then also I told you about Chantal Mokoena already. And I posted the video where Terence was stoned on Twitter. And the reason I posted it wasn't to disgust people. The reason I posted is because I believe that sometimes it's necessary to be shocked by the reality of crime in South Africa, because people are too often allowed to just become statistics. You know, someone just becomes a number. Right. And interestingly enough, old military colleagues of Terence sent me messages. Some of military associations, veteran associations, sent me a message saying, remove that, the poor family, you know, Terence wouldn't have approved of this. And so on and so forth. And my comment was as follows. I said, the biggest reason for the state of South Africa is not government or the ANC. It's due to apathy and silent diplomacy. The fact that we don't show the world what happens to good men like Terence Tegg and innocent little children like Chantal Mokoena. And I really stand by that. I think apathy and silent diplomacy are two of the most evil things in South Africa. And they by far outperform the ANC or any corrupt government official.
Yeah, I read in a piece in the New York Times this weekend's New York Times, pretty much on the same topic. This gentleman says, you know, all the mass shootings in American schools and other places. A lot of times they don't show the pictures. They don't show you what a bullet does to a head of a human being.
Yep.
The body, the way it damages. So it's just numbers. So many people were killed, and then the next thing you see mark shows of them with the victims when they were alive, smiling, looking happy. These are the people who were killed.
Yeah.
So people don't have a sense of what damage, what what damage gets done to a human body by a bullet. Maybe I also think that sometimes we should show these things so that people understand, and hopefully they will be a bit more sensitive towards the need to act and to push back against these things.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I think you're 100% right. And I'm a firm believer in allowing people to defend themselves with firearms in South Africa. But I'm also a firm believer in the fact that it is something that needs to be done very carefully. It's I think the United States has a serious problem in certain parts. And I'm not saying ban everything, but I do believe that that parts need to be regulated in a way to make sure that it doesn't end up in the wrong hands. I think the dynamic that we're sitting with in South Africa is that a lot of the firearms in the hands of criminals actually come from the police. So now you're going to end up disarming citizens whilst criminals are getting increasing amounts of firearms and firepower from the police themselves. So you're actually allowing the wolf to guard the sheep, and that's not going to work. But the reason I'm saying that, sorry, Sole, I've drifted off a bit. The reason I'm saying that is that I also believe that we need to share the details sometimes, and we must do it in a way that we don't further desensitize people, but that sometimes there's a time and a place where we need to tell the stories. And I'm a firm believer as well, and I always try when I speak with people, especially on interviews or in public, that we share the stories of 1, 2, or maybe 3 victims in order for them to never just become a number. We have to tell their stories, that people remember it's a human being behind that number.
Sure. 2 questions. Do you think Ramaphosa should fire Cele? 1, I know the answer, maybe I don't. 2, would you accept an apology from Cele? If so, under what circumstances or conditions?
Yes, of course. And in fact, I'm open for discussion with Cele as well. If there is ever a discussion, I would encourage it to be a public discussion. I think it's crucial that more public discussions are held. As I said earlier, this whole closed door things is an atrocity. So that's the first point. The second one is that yes, he should be sacked, but I'm guessing Ramaphosa should follow suit as well. So I think maybe the 2 can go on pension together. Maybe they can go farm some cattle, and so no, I'm just kidding. But yes, I think Cele needs to go. I think he should have been fired a long time ago. I think he's done immense damage to the South African police service as a whole over the past 10 to 15 years, from when he was the national commissioner and came back as the minister. And I think he's absolutely no good to the system.
Okay, our time is almost done. Just 2 more questions. One, I know that you've said many times that you're careful not to get involved in politics, and you're almost apologetic about speaking to say Helen Zille or to JP Smith. My view is that you should be, politics informs the way South Africa is right now, and you should not be fearful to say, yes, I met with Helen Zille. I will meet Helen Zille for dinner. The fact that people would love to hate Helen Zille doesn't mean that a lot of the things that she says are not right. They just don't want to hear them. People just want to hate her, to disagree with her before she opens her mouth. It doesn't mean that I will agree with her on everything. I like JP Smith. I think he's a very effective guy. I know, but I also know that some people hate him. But I'm not going to like or dislike South Africans on the basis of their skin color or what political party they come from. I like, there are people from most political parties in South Africa. There are political parties, of course, I don't speak to. But anyone who puts South Africa first, who wants South Africa to work, irrespective of what color they speak, we should work with them.
Yeah. So firstly, I might add that I really enjoy Helen Zille's company and speaking with her. And it's not that I'm apologetic about it. I just think that I'm careful that people don't think that that's all that we're busy with, because our core business is really looking for justice on ground level. So that's what we do, and that's what Action Society focuses on, and that's something that I feel strongly about. And I'm always, I always say to people, I never want people to get the impression that I'm busy just doing a talk shop, because that's not the case. But for example, this past week, I was called by many political leaders from different parties, giving me open support. And for example, the DA even I saw released a small poster saying that they stand with us. Cele needs to go, and so on and so forth. And I'm grateful for that. And again, I've only felt welcome when speaking to people like JP Smith and Helen Zille. In fact, this past week, the support from there and otherwise has been overwhelming.
Yeah. Is there anything, this is my final question, is there anything that you hoped I would ask you that I haven't asked you that you really would like to tell South Africans?
Sole, I think that there's no specific question. I think it's to tell people that there is always hope. We have to hold on to hope, and I think we always need to remind ourselves that there's, no matter where you go or how dangerous an area is, there's always something good to see or to hold on to, or so on. And I think we need to, and it's very difficult not to sound melodramatic about it. So, but the point is, I think there's always hope, and we need to try and remind each other of that. We need to be careful, and I need to be careful, because I struggle with that, not to fall into a negative spiral of everything is just falling apart, because it does feel that way sometimes in South Africa.
Yeah, it really does. Well, Ian, thank you so much for making the time to join me for the discussion. But before I say final goodbye to you, I want to say to all these viewers out there who follow WorldView, who are, especially those who watched this discussion up to this point, obviously it means they've enjoyed the content. I would like you to please continue supporting this platform, share it widely on your social media. If you feel that you can support it, you can email us at worldview.help@gmail.com. Ian, please do not stop what you're doing. Okay, we need more Ians, but we can't just have one Ian going from one community to another. We need, when you leave these communities, hopefully people will be inspired by what you do and do it themselves, so that you don't have to be the one who activates, and when you leave, nothing happens.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sole. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Don't stop. This is Sole Mweng at WorldView. Goodbye.